Welcome back to the deep dive. Ready to shake things up a bit?
Always up for a challenge. What do you have in mind?
Well, today we're diving into Alex Goldfayn's Pick Up the Phone and Sell, and honestly, when I first saw the title, I was a little skeptical.
Really? Why is that?
Well, phone calls. In today's world of emails and social media, it seemed a bit, well, old school.
I can understand that it does seem counterintuitive in the age of instant messaging and everything.
Right. But Goldfayn makes a pretty compelling case for why picking up the phone might be the secret weapon to actually doubling your sales.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like we've become so reliant on these digital tools that we kind of forgotten the power of actual human interaction, of a real voice on the other end of the line.
Absolutely. So let's unpack that a bit. When Goldfayn talks about these proactive calls, is he talking about those dreaded cold calls? Just dialing random numbers and hoping for the best? Because I think we all have some trauma there.
Oh, yeah. I think we've all been on the receiving end of those. And you're right. That's what most people think of when they hear phone sales. But Goldfayn actually says there's no such thing as a cold call.
Wait, really? No cold calls. How does he define that?
Well, he's talking about calls that are about building relationships, offering genuine value, not just trying to, push a product.
Okay, so it's more about being a resource, someone who can help, rather than just a salesperson.
Exactly. And he argues that these calls, these proactive calls, are actually your most powerful sales tool.
More powerful than in-person meetings, even in a world where, face-to-face interaction is so valued.
That's what he says. He tells this great story about Chris O.
Chris O.
Yeah, he was an inside sales rep who, started making these calls, just checking in with clients, seeing how he could help. And his sales just skyrocketed, like went from being an average performer to one of the top salespeople in his company.
Wow, that's quite a turnaround. So I guess the question is, if these calls are so effective, why aren't more people doing it?
Well, that's where Goldfayn gets into the psychology of it all. He acknowledges that fear of rejection, that feeling that you're bothering people, that you're interrupting their day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know I get annoyed when I get unsolicited sales calls.
Right. But his point is that most salespeople aren't making these kinds of calls. So when you do, you instantly stand out. And by simply asking, hey, how can I help you? You're shifting the dynamic.
You're reframing the call as an act of service, not an intrusion.
Exactly. You're basically saying, I'm here for you. How can I make your life easier?
Mm.
And in a world where everyone's so busy, that can be a breath of fresh air.
I can see that. But I have to ask, in a world with emails, LinkedIn, texting, even video calls, why bother with the phone at all? Isn't it a bit, well, outdated?
That's a good question. And Goldfayn doesn't discount those other tools. In fact, he believes they're important parts of a well-rounded sales strategy.
So it's not about ditching the digital world.
Not at all. It's about using those tools strategically alongside your phone calls. Emails, LinkedIn, all of that, they can be great for scheduling, for following up, for sharing information.
But the phone is for that human connection, for that real-time conversation.
Exactly. That's where you build rapport, where you really get to understand your client's needs, where you can address their concerns in the moment.
Okay, that makes sense. But going back to those, cold calls, I think we've all had those experiences where we felt like we were just being bombarded with sales pitches from people we don't know. So how does Goldfayn address that?
It's interesting. He actually dedicates a whole section of the book to this, and his perspective is quite different. He argues that there are no cold calls. He calls them human calls.
Human calls.
Yeah, his point is that even if you don't know someone personally, you can find common ground pretty quickly.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do you turn a cold call into a human call?
Well, Goldfayn suggests thinking about shared experiences, especially those that have been heightened by, the pandemic. Think about it. We've all been through a lot in recent years.
Right. There's a shared sense of, having gone through something together.
Exactly. So you could ask things like, how has your business adapted to all the changes? Or what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing right now?
So it's about finding that common thread, that shared humanity, even with someone you've never met before.
Exactly. And that instantly warms up the conversation. It makes the other person more receptive because you're acknowledging that you're both in this together.
Okay, I can see how that would make a difference. But I have to say, even with that approach, picking up the phone and calling someone you don't know can still be pretty intimidating. It takes a certain level of confidence, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Mindset is absolutely key. Goldfayn talks a lot about that. He says, you have to believe in the value you offer. You have to have the confidence to share that value. But confidence can be built. He suggests starting small, maybe with what he calls a target 60 list.
A target 60 list. What's that?
It's basically a list of 60 customers or prospects that you want to reach out to.
Okay, so it's a focused approach. But how do you stay organized and make sure you're, actually making those calls consistently?
Well, Goldfayn offers a simple proactive call planner to help you to help structure your outreach.
Sounds helpful.
Yeah, it's a great tool. He also recommends making those calls first thing in the morning.
Why first thing?
Well, he says that's when you have the most energy, the most focus. He even uses Mark Twain's eat the frog analogy.
Eat the frog.
Yeah, get the toughest task out of the way first, then the rest of the day feels easier.
I like that. Eat the frog. I'm going to remember that one. But for those of us who find the thought of making back-to-back sales calls a bit overwhelming, are there strategies to make it more manageable?
Oh, definitely. Goldfayn recommends the Pomodoro technique.
The Pomodoro technique.
Yeah, you basically break down your calling time into like 25-minute chunks with short breaks in between.
Okay, so you're not just staring at this massive list of calls, you're breaking it down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Exactly. And those little breaks, they give you a chance to, recharge, refocus, come back with renewed energy.
That's a great tip. But what about those times when you reach someone's voicemail?
Voicemail. The dreaded voicemail.
Right. It can be tempting to just, hang up. But what's Goldfayn's advice on leaving effective voicemails?
He provides some specific voicemail scripts that are, short and sweet, personalized, and they highlight the value you offer.
So, no rambling on and on.
No, definitely not. He also emphasizes sending a follow-up communication, like an email or a LinkedIn message, just to kind of solidify that connection and offer multiple ways for the person to get back to you.
Okay, so multiple touch points, making it easy for them to connect with you. But even with the best scripts and strategies, I imagine there's still a chance you're going to face rejection.
Oh, absolutely. Rejection is just, part of the game.
So how do you deal with that? How do you stay positive when you're hearing no after no?
Goldfayn uses a great analogy. He talks about Tom Brady's draft report.
Tom Brady, the football player.
Yeah, remember, he wasn't a top draft pick. In fact, the scouting report on him was pretty brutal.
Right, but he ended up being, Tom Brady.
Exactly. And Goldfayn's point is that, you need that same kind of unwavering belief in yourself and your ability to succeed, even when you're facing rejection.
Wow, that's powerful. So it's not just about techniques, it's about cultivating that resilience and knowing that, every no is bringing you closer to a yes.
Exactly. It's a journey. You're not going to master it overnight.
I'm starting to see this whole picking up the phone thing in a new light. It's not just about making sales. It's about connecting with people, building relationships, and offering genuine value.
And, to kind of keep track of all that, Goldfayn actually has this template he calls the proactive call tracker.
A proactive call tracker?
Yeah, basically you log all your calls, what happened, what you need to do next. Helps you stay organized.
Okay, so you're turning those individual calls into like a system, a strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keeps you on track,
Yeah.
helps you spot patterns, But speaking of patterns, let's talk about those clients who haven't ordered in a while. Those calls can be a little awkward, right?
Oh, yeah. You don't want to sound like you're nagging them, like, hey, where's my money?
Right. But Goldfayn has a script for that.
Yeah.
And it's really clever. Instead of focusing on their lack of orders, you start by asking about them, their business, how things are going.
So you're turning it into a check-in?
Yeah, like a friendly consultant, not a salesperson. You could say something like, hey, I was just thinking about you. Wanted to see what you're working on these days.
It takes the pressure off.
Exactly. And they might have just forgotten to reorder, or maybe their needs have changed. It gives you a chance to, reconnect and offer solutions.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, what about those clients who are loyal, they order regularly, but they only buy a limited range of products? How do you encourage them to explore more of what you offer?
He calls those house accounts, and he has a great strategy for them. You call them up, thank them for their business, and then ask something like, what other products or services do you typically buy? Or what kind of projects are you working on right now?
So you're subtly introducing them to other things you offer without being pushy.
Exactly. You're just planting seeds, expanding their awareness.
I like that. So we've covered those who haven't ordered in a while, those who are loyal but might need a little nudge. Are there any other client types Goldfayn singles out?
He also talks about customers who mainly communicate through email. They place orders online, send inquiries, that kind of thing. He suggests responding to one or two of those emails each day with a phone call.
A phone call?
Yeah.
instead of just replying to the email.
Yep. Unexpected, right. And that creates a moment of like genuine surprise, a connection. Plus, you can often uncover opportunities that weren't mentioned in their email.
You're taking that digital interaction and turning it into a real conversation.
Exactly. And that personal touch can make all the difference. But now you might be thinking, okay, what about reaching out to people I've never spoken to before? Is Goldfayn advocating cold calling complete strangers?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. It feels like we're back to square one.
Well, he addresses that head on. And it all comes back to, finding that human connection. Remember, no cold calls, only human calls.
Okay, but how do you make that initial contact feel less transactional and more human when you're reaching out to someone you've never spoken to before?
Research is key. Before you make that call, take a few minutes to learn about the person, their company, LinkedIn, their website. It helps you tailor your approach, shows you've done your homework.
It's about personalization.
Exactly. And once you've done your research, you can use that to find common ground. Maybe you went to the same university, or you're both passionate about, cycling, or you're both facing similar challenges in your industries.
Okay, so you've done your research, you've found some common ground, you've made that initial connection. Now, how do you transition to talking about business without it feeling forced?
Instead of launching into a product pitch, Goldfayn says, start with open-ended questions, focus on their needs. You could ask, what are some of your biggest pain points right now? Or what are your top priorities for the coming year?
So you're positioning yourself as a problem solver, not a salesperson.
Exactly. And once you understand their needs, you can naturally introduce your products or services as solutions. It's much more organic, much more effective.
This is really making me rethink my whole approach to sales. It's less about being a smooth talker and more about being a genuine, helpful resource.
Right. And, picking up the phone and making those calls, it can still feel intimidating.
Oh, definitely.
But remember, it's a process. You're not going to be a phone-selling superstar overnight. It takes practice. It takes facing rejection. But each call, even the ones that don't go perfectly, is an opportunity to learn and grow.
So it's a journey.
It is.
Yeah.
And Goldfayn's book is a great guide for that journey. It's packed with practical advice, scripts, encouragement. It's really helped me feel more comfortable with the whole phone thing.
I can imagine. He does offer a lot of specific language to use during calls.
Yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways there?
Well, he stresses keeping it conversational. You don't want to sound like you're reading from a script,
Yeah.
Use his scripts as a starting point, but adapt them to your personality, to the specific situation.
Authenticity is key.
Exactly. People can tell when you're being fake.
Yeah.
But when you're genuine, when you're truly interested in helping them, that creates a real connection. Yeah. Did any specific phrases jump out at you?
I really liked, what are you working on that I can help with?
Oh, that's a great one.
It's simple, but it really positions you as like a problem solver.
It does. He also recommends things like, I was thinking about you or I was working with a client who reminded me of you. Those little touches, they make it more personal.
Yeah, it shows you're not just dialing numbers randomly.
Right. But beyond the words themselves, your tone, your energy, that's super important too.
Oh, absolutely. Enthusiasm is contagious.
It is. But it has to be genuine enthusiasm. When you're excited about what you offer and you believe in its value, that comes through naturally.
It's about finding that balance between being professional and letting your passion shine through. What about those days when you're just not feeling it? Maybe you've had a rough morning, a string of rejections. How do you stay positive?
Mindset again, right? Goldfayn reminds us that every no is just bringing you closer to a yes.
You have to look at it as part of the process.
Yeah, it's a numbers game. And the more no's you hear, the more resilient you become. Like working a muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it gets.
That's a great way to put it. So focus on the positive, celebrate the wins, and keep building that resilience muscle.
Exactly. And, beyond mindset, one really practical tip is to track your calls diligently. He has this template called the Proactive Call Tracker.
We talked about that earlier.
Right. But it's worth emphasizing. You log every interaction, the outcome, your next steps. You can see what's working, what's not.
It's like turning your calls into data, a roadmap for improvement.
Exactly. You might notice that certain types of calls are more effective or that certain times of day work better for you.
It's like a scientific experiment, always testing and refining.
I like that. And by analyzing your data, you make smarter decisions about how you spend your time and energy.
It really is fascinating how you can use data to fine-tune your approach. But, we've talked a lot about strategies and techniques and all that, but it seems like the underlying theme here with this whole pick up the phone and sell philosophy is really mindset.
Oh, absolutely. You can have the best scripts, the best strategies in the world, but if you don't have the right mindset, it's not going to work.
So how important is mindset to actually, succeeding with phone-based selling?
It's fundamental, honestly. Goldfayn dedicates a big chunk of the book to this. He talks about the importance of confidence, of enthusiasm, and maybe even more importantly, perseverance.
Perseverance. So like not giving up even when you're facing rejection.
Exactly. You're not going to win every call. But it's about embracing those no's, seeing them as part of the process.
But it's not a failure. It's just, a step on the way to a yes.
Exactly. Every no gets you closer to that yes. And the more no's you hear, the more resilient you become.
Okay, so how do we cultivate that resilience? How do we stay, positive and motivated even when we're facing those setbacks?
Well, Goldfayn suggests really focusing on the value you're offering. Remember why you're making these calls. It's not just about making a sale, it's about helping people. You're offering solutions to their problems. That's something to feel good about.
It's about connecting with your purpose, your why.
Exactly. And it also helps to, celebrate those wins, even the small ones. Every time you connect with someone, have a good conversation, get a yes, acknowledge that.
So you're building momentum, keeping that positive energy flowing.
Right. But beyond mindset, to stay organized and really maximize your efforts, Goldfayn has this really practical tip. Track your calls. Use that proactive call tracker we talked about.
Right, where you log every call, the outcome, next steps.
Exactly. That tracker becomes like your sales GPS.
Yep.
It helps you prioritize, spot patterns, see what's working.
So you're taking all those calls and turning them into data, which you can use to improve.
Exactly. And the more data you have, the better decisions you can make.
Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It's really been eye-opening. We've talked about everything from the power of proactive calls to mindset, the strategic use of silence, the importance of tracking. It's a lot to take in.
It is. And Goldfayn's book, it really is a gold mine of information. If you're in sales or even if you're not, honestly, there's so much valuable stuff in there.
I agree. As we wrap up, what are some of the key takeaways you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Well, I think the biggest one is to, challenge your assumptions about phone-based selling. It's not about being pushy or annoying. It's about building relationships, offering real value, having those genuine human connections. And the phone's just one piece of the puzzle. It works best when you integrate it with all your other communication tools.
So it's about finding that synergy between, the digital and the human.
Exactly. And it's also about embracing the process. It's not always going to be easy. There will be challenges. But with persistence, a positive mindset, and a willingness to, keep learning and adapting, you can achieve some pretty incredible results.
Well said. For everyone listening, we encourage you to check out Pick Up the Phone and Sell, dive into these ideas and see how they can transform your approach to, well, not just sales, but connecting with people in general.
And remember, the next time you hesitate to make that call, think about what could be on the other end of the line. It might just be your next big opportunity.
That's a great point. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure, as always.
It's been fun. I always enjoy these conversations.
And for all of you listening, until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.